Hello, YouTube, and welcome to Superpower Broadcasting. My name is Kevin Castley, and in this video, I'm just going to be talking a bit about the news that broke over the last couple of days. We had Pete Buttigieg, as well as Amy Klobuchar, one day after another, drop out and proceed to endorse or rather, in Pete Buttigieg's case, proceed to endorse Joe Biden. Now, this is interesting. This isn't going to be too long of a stream. I just want to talk about essentially, what the implications of this are. And, a lot of people are talking about how great this is and how wonderful this is and everything, because it is going to reduce the amount of vote split in the moderate camp. I, however, have an issue, though, which is that, and as I was talking with my friend Reese recently about this, it's kind of too late. Now, it's better late than never, or never, of course. I mean, if these guys stayed in the race past Super Tuesday, that would obviously do more damage than if they got out between South Carolina and Super Tuesday. However, let's keep it real here. We have to preface this news by the fact that Pete Buttigieg stayed in this way too long. He should have dropped out before South Carolina. What did he think was going to happen in South Carolina? He performs very poorly with African American voters, and more than half of the voters in South Carolina were African American in the Democratic primary. So what do you think was going to happen? Do you think he was going to win it? Like, it was either going to be Bernie or Biden, but it was pretty clear that it was going to be Biden. I mean, even Steyer had a higher chance. So he waits, he sees how it goes, and then he drops out. Well, it's kind of a mess. I mean, what Reese and I were saying was essentially, Biden, sure, he won big in South Carolina. He won really big in South Carolina. But what we're missing here is that he could have won much bigger. And you say, well, Kevin, doesn't matter. Like, he won. No, it does matter, because it's not a winner take all primary. So the amount of delegates that you get is in relation to the percentage of votes that you get. So yeah, it does matter. Winning by 20 points versus winning by 30 points isn't, he won it. It's like, no, you pick up more delegates if you win by 30 versus if you win by 20. That's just a fact. And that matters, because there are going to be other states out there where Bernie has a 20-point advantage or a 15-point advantage or something, or maybe even the 30-point advantage, in which case you need to cancel that out and you need to make it up and you need to gain ground. And even though Biden won big in South Carolina, the fact that these guys stayed in that late when they knew they basically had no chance at it demonstrates that, they did some damage already to Biden. Now, of course, it's early on. And, we're looking at a matter of delegates of about, the 50 range. We're talking like, 2 digits, 50 delegates versus, maybe 60 or 70 delegates altogether, over the course of the last few primaries and caucuses. But that still matters. And now you say, well, there are 1,991 delegates that you need to win, to clinch the nomination. So what's a big difference of 10 or 20 delegates? Well, if Bernie has like 1,995 and you have, like, I don't know, let's say for the sake of argument, you have 1,978. Yeah, 10 or 20 kind of matter. I mean, yeah, thresholds matter, numbers matter. It's like, okay, that's kind of arbitrary. It's like, at what point are you going to say it does matter? No, of course it matters. It all matters. Every single delegate matters. And it's a fact of the matter that Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg staying into South Carolina definitely did ultimately take away delegates from Joe Biden. Absolutely, that's what happened. And Bernie was able to get a more proportionate, a more relative gain with respect to Biden than he would have if it had just been Biden, Bloomberg, and Bernie. Bloomberg is another matter. I'm not even going to really get into Bloomberg too much tonight. I am not a fan of Bloomberg. Obviously, I've got a big issue with Bloomberg. I mean, well, I've got a number of issues with him. It's funny to just take a brief aside here, my friends. There was a trolly comment. No, it wasn't a troll. It was troll level commenting, but it was a genuine person who was responding and posting cringe to my meme page earlier because I had posted some pro Biden stuff. And they were saying, you know, how, well, shouldn't you like Bloomberg? Bloomberg is like the most neocon of them all and all of this. And I'm like, what? I mean, of course, they don't know what neocon means or anything, but they're saying how, oh, well, he supported the Iraq war, therefore he's a neocon. And it's like, therefore I should like him. And it's like, okay, that's kind of a low bar. It's like, okay, you supported getting rid of one of the worst tyrants of the 20th century. Okay, that's good. That's good. I mean, Bernie was opposed to it, so you could go lower, but that's kind of a low bar. I mean, realistically speaking, if we lived in a sort of proper political era, being against a brutal tyrant who killed 1.5 million people, did genocide, provided aid to terrorists, etc., violated the non-nuclear treaty, the non-proliferation treaty, violated the bans on chemical weapons, violated the ban on use of chemical weapons, violated genocide convention, all this stuff. Like, okay, that should be the bare minimum. And then we're going to have a debate over what your economic policy is or your social policy is. Being for the Iraq war is the bare minimum. That's the bare minimum standard. Everything else on top of that is what should matter. Being in favor of getting rid of Saddam, that's like the most basic thing. That's like bread and water compared to, you know, career aspirations or whatever, right? It's like, it's the basic stuff. Like, in other words, if you're not for that, we're not even going to have a discussion. You're not even a serious candidate at that point. But as far as Bloomberg goes, no, I'm against Bloomberg. Bloomberg's done dictator apologia ad nauseum. He's defended the communist Chinese dictatorship repeatedly. He defended the Russian invasion of Ukraine. He basically characterized it as, well, it's their part of the world or whatever. It was realist, cringe level spheres of influence, spheres of influence memes. It was weak. It was super weak. He's just like, yeah, let's condemn 40 million Ukrainians to Russian fascism because, it's their territory. It's like, okay, well, can you at least get behind getting Maduro out in Venezuela? That's U.S. territory then, you know? It's like, but it never goes both ways. It never goes both ways. No, I'm not a fan of Bloomberg. I despise Bloomberg. The amount of damage that Bloomberg's already done to the Biden campaign it's despicable. It's really despicable. He's cost him. Now, granted, not too many delegates have been allocated thus far. Only about 4% have. 34% are going up Super Tuesday. But Bloomberg's still in the race. He's got no chance. You know, I put out a tweet earlier on. And I guess it was yesterday now, and I said, who's got a higher chance of winning this thing? Mike Bloomberg or Jeb? And guess who won? Of course, Jeb won. Jeb's got a higher chance of being president and winning in November than Mike Bloomberg does. Mike Bloomberg's got a negative chance. I mean, another meme about this. I'm like, you know, Mike Bloomberg's going to go to them if it comes to a brokered convention where he split the vote, and Bernie's got, like, you know, this plurality of delegates, but Biden and him are sharing, you know, the majority of delegates, and he's going to say to the DNC execs, hey, what do you mean I needed delegates? What do you mean? I spent $180 billion on Pornhub ads. What do you mean I don't get the nomination? I mean, I really think this guy thinks that he could just buy his way to the nomination, just buy his way to the presidency. I mean, Donald Trump is more politically savvy than this guy. No, Mike Bloomberg's a joke. I mean, I'm going to get back to the subject at hand, of course, but just going to see. We got some comments in the chat. We have Philip. He writes, if Redline Bernie were elected president, he would likely die after a short time. and then his vice president, AOX. Maybe you mean like AOC. Let's see. Breadline Bernie must lose. Bloomberg is a menace. I agree. Bloomberg is a complete menace. Um, if Bernie, 100%, 100% on this one. If Bernie wins the nomination, Bloomberg is largely responsible. Yeah, I couldn't agree more on that. I mean, at this point, that's what I'm going to get into a bit later in this video, is the percentage figures and whatnot. So prior to Buttigieg and Klobuchar dropping out, now it's a good thing that they dropped out, and it's a really good thing that they dropped out before Super Tuesday. However, I'm going to argue it's too late. It's just too late. What did they think was going to happen in South Carolina? Now, if you're Bernie and you think, I'm not going to drop out, even in isolation, he has momentum in other states, in a lot of states. He's competitive in most states, right? So, of course, he's not going to drop out or not drop out over South Carolina. But even if we just look at South Carolina in isolation, there are two candidates in that state that you think, yeah, they're going to stay in no matter what. That's Bernie. It's smart for him to stay in. Of course, he's going to stay in. Now, he lost, but he had a shot. He had a reasonable shot. He had a reasonable shot at getting a decent amount of delegates. So it makes sense that you would spend some energy there. Biden, of course, did very well, and he knew he was going to do pretty well, and he had a strong base there, a big base of loyal Democrats that support him, right? A lot of fans of Biden over there. He had Coburn, if I recall, endorse him, so he knew that he was going to, that he was competitive there, that it was a state that was in play for him. So it made sense. Like, I'm not a fan of Bernie, but I'm not going to tell Bernie don't stay in, for South Carolina. No, of course, he had a reasonable shot at it, right? And he picked up the second largest amount of delegates, so good for him in that respect. That was a smart move on his part. But in the case of Biden, I'm not even saying only stay in if you think you can win. If you think you can get a decent amount of delegates, then you stay in. And of course, they both knew that they were competitive in states coming up after it. But what's the deal with like Buttigieg? He's got no path to victory. He knew he had no path to victory before South Carolina. Warren knew she had no path to victory after South Carolina. She knew that she couldn't win South Carolina. Why even stay in? Now, fortunately, at least in her case, it's arguable that a lot of her supporters would have supported Bernie. However, I've also seen stats that indicate that a decent amount of her supporters would have actually voted for Joe Biden. That they're kind of disgusted by the Bernie bros. They're progressive. They're definitely more left wing than Biden, but they can't stand the toxicity of the Bernie crowd. They don't like the Chapo level dirtbaggery, that sort of stuff, right? In other words, they're respectable progressives, if you will, right? To the extent as such as possible, because if you know, I'm not too much a fan of the progressives, right? But in the case of course, in the case of Bernie. And in the case of Biden, they were both competitive. But Warren had no shot. She knew she had no shot. What the hell is she doing? She's still in the race, by the way. What a joke. I mean, now, again, it's very possible that the majority of her voters would support Bernie, in which case I say stay in the race. Obviously, I want Biden to win. But if I'm a consultant for Warren, if I'm somebody who has her best interest at hand, I'm going to take her aside and say, hey, look, you're embarrassing yourself. If you want to be president, this is going to look really bad when you run again in the future, because they're going to say, look at how poorly you've performed in these states. You should get out before Super Tuesday, so that when it comes around in 4 or 8 years or whenever you decide to run again, when you have a better shot, maybe, hopefully she never does. I don't like her, but from their perspective, of course, just say, hey, look, you gave it a good shot. You didn't make it. It's not your time, but you got a lot of time left. Things can change. You could get this in 20 years and still be president, right? And you'd still be younger than Bernie or whatever. So in her case, she's just digging herself a hole of cringe. In the case of Klobuchar, she had no path. She knew she had no path. I know that they were staying in long enough to get prominence so that they would be offered sweet and cushy administration posts. And, it worked. Biden has already said, Buttigieg will have a place in his administration. However, what should have happened was Biden should have offered him this like a week or longer ago and said, hey, look, I know that you're in this. But let's just get this over with now, so it helps us in the long run, because they waited too late. They waited too late. See, this is the greatest proof. I'm so sick of this lie, this meme, this BS talking point out there that the DNC is rigging things, that the DNC is coordinating things, that the DNC and the establishment is pulling all the strings and telling everybody what to do so that Biden can win. I'm like, if they were going to do that and it was all a big conspiracy, they would have told these guys to get out of the race a long time ago and rally behind Biden. Obviously, this was organic. Obviously, this was these guys playing ego games and wanting to see and test fate and everything and try to boost up their prestige and their profile as much as possible, even if it hurt the moderate side of the party in the long run. That's what this was. There was no DNC conspiracy theory here to help Biden. This was two megalomaniac-ish type people. Now they're okay. They're okay. I'm not anti Klobuchar. I'm not anti Buttigieg. But let's just call this what it was. They wanted to personally be president, and they were going to test all luck, and it didn't work out for them. So then they threw in the towel. They should got out a long time ago. Now I get it that if they got out a long time ago, Biden probably wouldn't have thought they were too important, and he might not offer them a post in the administration. Okay, so let's just keep it real. Let's just keep it real. I know that this is politics and it happens all the time. Those guys were willing to hinder. I'm not saying like tank, I'm not saying ruin, because Biden can still probably win this, but they were willing to hinder Biden's chances, the moderate chances, in the hopes of a 0.00001% chance that somehow something magically changes so that they personally can be president. I get it, everybody wants to be president. Like, who wouldn't want to be president, right? But they knew it wasn't going to be them. They knew it wasn't going to be them. And instead of acknowledging it and saying, well, let's try to help the cause that we support the most, which is the moderate side against the Bernie tanky type wing, they stayed in. They stayed in, and they did damage. Now it's small. It's like 10, 20 delegates potential difference. Biden's at like something like 50 delegates right now. If they didn't do this, Biden could have like 70 delegates right now. Biden would be in the lead going into Super Tuesday instead of placing second, I believe, currently against Bernie. That has a momentum effect. I mean, that has an effect that scales up momentum-wise into Super Tuesday, psychologically speaking. I'm pissed. I'm pissed at these guys. They didn't get out soon enough. I'm glad they dropped out. I'm glad. It could have been a lot worse. Obviously, it didn't break the relationship with Biden. Biden still offered Buttigieg a post because, I mean, he's like, well, what am I going to do? I'd rather have his support than not. But deep down, Biden's like, yeah, you could have got out sooner, dude. Like, what were you thinking? You knew you didn't have a shot at this. I mean, he's young. He raised $76 million, but who cares? Bloomberg spent like $180 million, and he's going to get his ass beat in California. So, I mean, money doesn't matter. Votes matter. Ideas matter. Persuading people matters. Obviously, Buttigieg wasn't going to do that and be president. Biden, on the other hand, very persuasive guy, very charismatic guy, very prominent person who's got a lot of name recognition, household name. He's got a lot going into this, and he is the one that everybody needs to rally around. So I'm going to take a look at the chat right now. So what do we have? Oh, we got quite a few new comments on here. That's good. I like to see an active chat. I know I didn't give you guys that much warning before I went live this time. Last time it was like 4 hours or whatever, but I've been super busy today. Let's see what we got here. We got... God. Oh yeah, I was going to say AOC, Omar, or another squad member, since I've actually seen them being considered for VP for Bernie. See, it's funny. I could see that too. See, if Bernie did get the nomination, now Bernie would have no shot against Trump, regardless of what he does, regardless of whom he picks. Even if he picks a moderate, he wouldn't win. Trump would curb stomp him, but electorally, of course. But if you did want to maximize your chances, if you did want to go from, say, a 0% chance of winning against Trump to, say, a 20% chance of winning against Trump, here's what you would do if you were Bernie. You would pick somebody that would counter your biggest weakness. What's Bernie's biggest weakness? His biggest weakness is his radicalism, and it's his stubbornness and inability to compromise. So he would pick somebody who's more moderate than him and has worked across the aisle in the past. He would pick somebody, like I'm not saying he would pick a Republican or something like that, of course not, but somebody that's on the more moderate side, like, for example, a Pete Buttigieg type figure or something like that. Now, obviously, Pete Buttigieg doesn't have experience in the federal level of government, but you get the point. Somebody who's more moderate, but with a progressive sort of tinge, but definitely not Bernie level. That's what you would do, because he's far left. In a general election against the right wing, you need to go towards the center to reach independence, right? That's pretty basic, of course. And so what you would do if you were Bernie, if you pick a progressive as your VP, all the progressives were already going to vote for you anyway. So does that actually help you? No, it doesn't. It doesn't help you at all. It doesn't help you at all. If you win, then it might make you look like you have a bigger mandate to get your agenda across. Oh, I can see that 100%. Like, if he won and he picked somebody like AOC as his VP, he could come out and honestly say, this is a huge mandate, progressive ticket through and through. The American people wanted a progressive agenda put through. But he would have a 0% chance of winning that. There would be no mandate because you can't win doing that. America is not a progressive country. The average American, the average sort of independent is somewhere between where Joe Biden is and where Donald Trump is. So, or where Mitt Romney was. They're not somewhere between AOC and Bernie. That's just not a thing unless you watch like Young Turks every day and live in a bubble in like Boston or Vermont or even Portland, or even Portland has some conservatives in it. I mean, there, if you lived in a very, very progressive bubble, sure, maybe that makes sense. Maybe if like lived in center of Austin and never went outside the city or something, maybe. But come on, that's not feasible. Really, you're gonna win a general election against Trump running with a progressive? Yeah, no, but you're right, Philip. I could totally see him doing it, doubling down, because he's Bernie. He's incapable of compromise. He's incapable of negotiation. He's incapable of pragmatism. That's where Biden's gonna absolutely raffle stomp this guy, because Biden's whole claim to fame is pragmatism. Biden's willing to work with people that he doesn't really like too much to get things done. Bernie's like the opposite of that. Biden's the anti-Bernie. And if you're Bernie and you win it and you're running against somebody like Trump, who, by the way, is already the incumbent, he's already got an advantage. He has an advantage right now. He doesn't have to deal with this tight primary the way that these guys do. Oh, he's got no shot. He doesn't have a chance. He doesn't have a chance in the universe. 0%. Let's see. What else do we have here? Hello, Hawks. Hello, Recent Vision. Let's see. Kevin, they believe the U.S. is a direct democracy. Any democratic tool used to derive from that, they see as illegitimate. Yeah. What else do we have here? I did hear about the elections. I've been pretty busy. I don't have too much news to really report on that. I know Netanyahu is back in again. I got my issues with Netanyahu. I've done a video on that the last time there was an election in Israel. I think it was like 8 or 9 months ago or whatever. You can check it out. I think I titled it the problem with Netanyahu. It's actually one of the first videos I did in my YouTube career. So there was that. Let's see. Trump, Rebu says Trump would destroy Sanders in a debate. Oh, I like his profile picture. Ukraine and USA shaking hands. That's based. That's based. Let's get, big up. Big up in the chat. Let's get Ukraine and NATO. 100%. 100%. Ukraine for NATO 2020. Let's do it. Let's do it. Oh man, yeah, Trump would destroy Sanders in a debate. Oh yeah, no, all the debates. All of the debates. On all the ads. Bernie would be raising considerable amounts of money from like the TYT fans who would just, it would sound like a lot of money. Like, oh, he raised $120 million this quarter, but it's all just the same 40,000 TYT fans who just, go and sign him checks each day, send him PayPal money or whatever. It's like not a very representative segment. It's like, it's some people, it's not nobody, but it's like a very tiny percentage of the country, not even like 1%, that write all of his donations. And sure, you could say, well, his average donor, it's small dollar. It's like, yeah, it's like $5 every day, but yeah, it's up, right? So they're diehards, they're crazies, they're cultish. If for them it's Bernie. I'm serious. I'm serious with this. Elizabeth Warren could 100% have an objectively more progressive platform than Bernie, and they wouldn't support her. They wouldn't support her at all. They wouldn't support her at all. TYT would be like, she's a corporate elitist or whatever. No, it's the Bernie cult. Now, it's not like a cult of personality in like the totalitarian sense or anything. I don't mean to be drawing a false equivalence or anything like that. But in the sense of how democracies go, in the sense of populism and that sort of stuff. And yeah, it's pretty culty. It's pretty culty. I mean, I'm serious. I'm serious. Like Bernie's the kind of guy who could just slip, somewhat more moderate, and they would eat it up. Because it's about Bernie. It's about the personality. Like I said, Warren could be many times more progressive, and they're going to stick with Bernie because he's their guy. It's kind of like the Trump thing, Trump can be left one day, right the other day, hawkish one day, anti-interventionist the next day. And his supporters are going to eat it up no matter what. So because it's all about the dear leader. We got Reason Vision. He says, big up. Yeah, big up. Big up Ukraine, big up NATO. Big up West. Big up liberal order. Trump is undebatable. No, Trump, that's not true. That's not true. If Biden won, let's say Biden won the nomination, I think it's still the likely outcome. Biden wins the nomination, goes on to general election against Trump. Biden would destroy him. Biden would destroy him in a debate because Joe Biden has this sense of, it's kind of hard to describe, the whole elite stick, that elite insult that Trump kind of stuck to Hillary Clinton. Even though Hillary Clinton wasn't really an elitist in like the sense of how we would generally think of it, Bill and them were from like Arkansas and stuff, and sure they became part of the establishment or whatever, but the way that Trump was able to do that worked better, I think, against Clinton for a number of reasons that we can get into later. Against Biden, it doesn't work. Biden has an objectively more personable and down to earth demeanor about himself. Now, I'm not saying that that's necessarily a good thing that you want in a leader. I like Clinton's style. I like how Clinton's based and how she doesn't really care what people think of her. But Biden, Biden's the kind of guy, he has that kind of like George W. Bush sort of thing about him where, he's kind of, he's folksy or whatever. He's got, mannerisms and things that make people think of him as, a genuinely nice and a genuine guy of integrity, which in this era, in an era when everybody thinks of politicians as liars and dishonest and out to say one thing, and then as soon as they get elected, they do the other. Well, with Biden's whole case is he's telling people right now, hey, look, I'm not going to be able to get everything done. I'm not going to promise you a million things and then not be able to deliver on them and disappoint you. Biden has said in the past, as he's running, that he won't change very much in terms of how the economy is operating. That takes so much courage to say that, because we're living in an era where everybody just wants to hear, oh yeah, I'll change things, change, like Obama. Yes, we can change. Like, It's such a meaningless phrase. And Biden keeps it real and says, yeah, I'll change some things. We're not going to be stupid like Trump. We're not going to shoot ourselves in the foot like Trump with all these bunk and junk quote unquote deals that he makes. We're not going to do that. But I'm not going to do a revolution or something. See, that to say that in this era when everybody wants to be super radical and cringy and fringy, for him to come out and say that, no, it makes him look like a real guy. And people want a real guy. Now, Donald Trump had that. He had that advantage going against Clinton. Trump looked more real. He was a reality TV show guy. He just looked more kind of down to earth than Clinton. And like I've said in the past, I don't necessarily want a leader who's down to earth in that sense. I want them to be expert and know what they're doing and be able to do tough decisions regardless of how popular it is. So for example, George Bush. George Bush was a perfect blend in my view because he was very personable. He presented himself in a very down to earth sort of manner, but at the same time, he left his tenure walking off into the sunset, knowing that, sure, he was at like a very low approval rating, but he knew that the history books would remember him as the guy who freed 50 million people from tyranny. And Obama, on the other hand, can't do that. He walked into the sunset knowing that, his entire legacy was going to be undone within 4 years. George Bush's legacy is still with us to this day. Iraq is a free country. Afghanistan has had a chance at peace and democracy, at least. Now, we'll get into that in a future video because there's some really cringe news with respect to that, where Trump is very close to surrendering to the Taliban. But that's news for another video, my friends, my hawks. Let's see what else we have in the chat. We have Israel and Ukraine for NATO. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, scare Russia. That's good. I want to scare Russia. I want Vlad the Thug to be crap scared. 100%. What else do we have here? Would there be a TYT fan / Antifa riots if Bernie doesn't get the nomination, at least in 1 or 2 cities? Oh, not 1 or 2 cities. I'm talking like dozens. Like, it depends on the nature, of course, the nature of how it goes. Obviously, they're going to say as the primaries go on, if Biden wins them, oh, it was rigged, or, oh, why is it taking so long to hear the results? Oh, it took an extra 22 minutes for them to report the results. Maybe the DNC did some malarkey or whatever, that sort of stuff. Of course, they're always going to do that. But the nature of how he wins, Biden, of course, will affect the severity and the acuteness of the protests and the riots. Because if it's kind of like over the next few months, Biden consistently wins big here and there, and he's got genuine support throughout, and he's got a strong ground game and whatnot, and he manages to win by 15 points here, 6 points there, 12 points there, loses a few by a few points, but he still picks up some delegates, that sort of thing. And he manages to win with a decent plurality against Bernie and gets the nomination. There will be people that are very upset, super upset, 100%. But if Biden narrowly wins it and it's super close, or if it comes to a contested convention just in general, and then it goes to the delegates and the super delegates, well, then you're looking at, severe protests. You're looking at people who say, oh, we're done with the party. Let's do the revolution now. Let's go full tanky. Let's just, riots in the streets, anarchy, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, well, at that point, yeah, TYT would egg it on. And you know who would egg it on? Donald Trump would egg it on because he's egging Bernie on right now. He's cheering on Bernie. Now, here's the biggest proof for why. Well, it's not the biggest. There's a lot, right? But here's some big evidence for why Bernie would lose big to Trump. You can call Trump stupid. You can call Trump an idiot. You can say he doesn't know what he's doing. But no, he knows how to market himself. He knows marketing, and he knows politics in the popularity contest sense of it, the schoolyard sense of it. Sure, he gets outplayed on the world stage for sure. But when it comes to domestic politics, electoral politics, democratic populist politics, that sort of stuff. He knows what he's doing. He he wouldn't be rooting for Bernie if he thought that Bernie was like this formidable challenger that he respects. And, he's got a lot of respect for. He's kind of worried about him, but, he sees that he's been wronged and he wants to take his side because he's got his back. Because even though they disagree, he's out there because he sees an injustice in the world and he sees them rigging it against Bernie and he wants to call it out because he doesn't like the elites or whatever. No, that's not Trump. Trump's smarter than that. He's smarter than that. He sees Biden and says, "Oh crap, this guy would kick my ass in a debate and he'd win by like 8 points in a general election against me, or at least 6 points." I mean, there's a good chance that Biden would actually be able to win some Republican states. Like there's actually a chance that Biden would carry Utah, that sort of stuff. Could happen. Could happen. He could carry Montana, that sort of thing. That could happen. Yeah. Trump's not an idiot, and he has smart consultants around him anyway that are aware of this. So of course he's gonna cheer on Bernie and try to make it so that Bernie gets the most votes in the primary, because then he has to fight Bernie. But Bernie's the easiest one. Who wouldn't want to fight Bernie? Like if I was running for national office for the executive, and I found out that I get to run against Bernie, I'd be like, hallelujah, praise the hawk gods. How could they have bestowed upon me this great and fortunate occurrence as to run against this clown ball? I mean, he knows he's gonna trounce Bernie. Bernie doesn't have a shot. All that Trump has to do is he doesn't even need to spend much money on an ad campaign. No creative effort. All he needs to do is play some, short clip Bernie quotes about Castro and the Soviet Union with like dark and morose music and snow in the background and stuff, and shadows of gulags and barbed wire with Bernie's quotes and a big hammer and sickle and stuff. And call him a socialist, and then play clips of him calling himself a socialist. I mean, that'd be like if Donald Trump called Jeb low energy and then played a clip of Jeb calling himself low energy. Like Jeb never called himself low energy, and it was still a really effective nickname against him. But Bernie has called himself a socialist. So you can imagine how effective those attack ads would be, because they're true. It's not even hackery. It's just a statement of fact. Trump would say, "My opponent is a socialist," and then he'd play an ad that wasn't taken out of context of Bernie calling himself a socialist. And you're like, well, Trump's kind of a dishonest guy, but normally there are kernels of truth here. In this case, it's all true. Well, I'm going to support Trump. Oh, Trump would win so huge, so huge, so huge. So of course he wants Bernie to win. He wants Bernie to win big Super Tuesday. That's why he's talking about how the DNC did a coup against Bernie. Of course he would say that. Of course he would say that. He's Trump. He wants to win in November. He doesn't want Bernie to win. He doesn't want the Democrats to win. So who's got the best chance of the Democrats losing? Bernie. It's not even close. Not even close. The only guy that would be close with is Bloomberg. There's a chance that Bloomberg might even lose worse than Bernie. No, I don't really think that's possible, but it could happen. But Bloomberg doesn't have a shot as is. I mean, Jeb's got a higher chance of winning the Democratic nomination than Bloomberg does. So as far as the serious contenders, there are two. There are two that actually have a chance. There are two that are only worth mentioning. That's Biden and Bernie. If you're Trump, it's a no-brainer. You want to run against Bernie because you don't even need to debate him. All that you need to do is just say, hey, look, he's a socialist. And it's true. That's the thing. What he said about low-energy Jeb, there's kind of a kernel of truth there, but Jeb's kind of a smart guy. I kind of like Jeb, even though I'm willing to acknowledge that he doesn't have the same sort of enthusiasm that Trump does in that sort of schoolyard sense, of course. But in Bernie, he is a socialist. Oh, those would be the most effective attack ads in recent memory. I mean, I'm sure there have been campaigns in the past that have run ads that would be more effective than those. But those would be ones for the history books. Oh, he would lose huge. I'm not saying he would lose 48 states against Trump and repeat 1984 Ronald Reagan victory. I'm not saying that would happen, but I'm also not saying that it wouldn't happen if Bernie was the nominee for Democratic for the Democratic nomination for president. I'm not saying that it wouldn't happen. It could happen. Sure, maybe he holds Vermont and Minnesota. Does Trump win New York? Yeah, probably. Does Trump win California? Absolutely. I mean, Reagan used to be their governor. Reagan won California. California can be read very easily. There are a lot of Republicans in California, a lot of middle class Democrats that don't really like the idea of living in a Soviet Union with bread lines, don't really like the idea of giving up their BMWs for socialism. You know, I've talked about it in the past before. A lot of, moderate middle class, upper middle class Democrats, a lot of them on the coasts, they would rather vote for a capitalist scumbag that they know is a liar and a cheater like Trump than a socialist, a communist. Oh, it's not even close. It's not even close. Oh, Trump would win so huge. What else do we have in here in the chat? Do you think Joe was mainly in the defensive in the debates? Yeah, I'm not really going to get into that too much here. I mostly just want to kind of talk about coming up to Super Tuesday. I want to generally kind of keep this stream a bit shorter. Bush actually wanted Georgia and Ukraine to be NATO members. Yeah. See, the thing is, let's see, what else is there? Kyle is already threatening riots. Oh, that's true. Kyle, we're talking about Kremlin Kyle, right? The Russian cow. He grazes in Russian grass fields now. Secular talk. That Kremlin Kyle. Yeah, Kyle. Kremlin cow. Yeah, him. Oh yeah, he said that Bernie needs to have his own private militia of people with guns going around and escorting him everywhere. Not like security guards, not security guards, not paid security that are trained and know what they're doing. Just people with guns walking around, because this is the Democratic Republic of Congo, right? Let's make it happen. DRC 2020. I mean, what a joke. What a joke. Kremlin Kyle is one of the most insidious people on YouTube. I mean, just the amount of damage and toxicity that this guy spread. I mean, it's basically Chapo level cringe. Oh man, Kremlin Kyle is a joke. What else do we have here in the chat? Then they will stay home in November, lose to Trump, and go on to blame moderates for it, just like in 2016. Oh yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing that's great about this. They always do the mental gymnastics to absolve themselves of any guilt or responsibility for their own ineptitude. I'm telling you, you're 100% right. You're 100% right. Here's what happens. Even if Bernie wins the nomination and goes on to run against Trump, of course he's going to lose. We've already gone over why he's going to lose. I've got a big video on it that Donald Trump would crush Bernie. You can go and check it out, in which I explain my reasoning, right? It's pretty obvious. And again, if you don't trust me, You say, hey, Kevin, you're a new YouTuber. What do I know about you? What do you know about politics or whatever? Go and look at Trump's Twitter. Trump is rooting for Bernie. Why is he rooting for Bernie? He wants to win in 2020. You think he wants to lose in 2020? You think he wants Bernie to be president in 2020? Nah, even if he's an idiot, I can tell you he's not that stupid. He knows what he's doing. He knows that Biden, I'm not even saying that he thinks that Biden would win against him. I'm not even saying here in this case that Biden would for sure win against him. I'm saying that if it's Biden, let's say Trump has 50-50. I don't think it's that case. I think it's closer to like 65% chance that Biden wins. But let's say 50-50 versus Bernie 100-0. What do you want? I mean, if it's you, what are you going to do? You're going to get there on Twitter and say, oh, yeah, they're rigging it. It's a no good DNC rig. Go Bernie 2020. That's what you're going to do if you're Trump, right? Yeah, because you want him to be the nominee. Oh, it's so obvious. It's so obvious. He's scared of Biden. Oh, he's so scared of Biden. Oh, man, Biden would destroy him. And Biden wouldn't even need to say that much. Trump is just incapable. He's incapable of it. One of the reasons why he was able to perform relatively well in debates against Clinton was that For unfortunate reasons that were largely unfair, Clinton has a very high disapproval rating. Now, Trump has high disapproval, of course, as well, but Clinton had slightly higher. Joe Biden doesn't have a very high disapproval rate. A lot of people really like Joe Biden. A lot of people who liked the Obama administration or were okay with the Obama administration, especially now compared to Trump, look at Biden and see, oh man, I want that back. I want a time when it wasn't cringe, even though it was still pretty cringe under Obama. I mean, he did the Iran deal and everything. No, those people look at Biden and they have favorable ratings for him. There are Republicans that have a favorable view of Biden. There weren't too many Republicans that had a favorable view of Clinton. Some of the never Trumpers came out and endorsed Clinton, but that was because they were never Trumpers and she was running against him. Some did it on principle. Bill Kristol, for example, as well as other neoconservatives, for sure. But most of the Republicans would never consider Clinton. Whereas if it's Trump versus Biden, well, Biden doesn't have anywhere near the unfavorability that Clinton had. Oh, it's over. It's gamesies. I mean, Trump doesn't really have a serious shot at that point. Like, it's basically a statistical guarantee that Biden is going to be the victor in November at that point. Let's see who else is commenting here. We have Raybu again. He says Sanders attacking Bloomberg for fundraising for Bush Republicans is funny. The same guy who was most of his life an independent, not even a Democrat. Yeah, no, it's hilarious. Bernie has spent like 90% or whatever, more than 90% of his career or whatever as an independent. He sure, okay, he caucuses with the Democrats sometimes. No, he's an independent. He's to the left of the Democrats. He views the Democrats as evil capitalist liberals, and he's a socialist. Socialists hate liberals. He sees the Democrats as basically like, Blair in the UK, that sort of thing. He sees them as just hawks, sees them as pro-business, sees them as for lower taxes. He sees them as, individual rights, that sort of stuff. He's not a fan of them. He's never been a Democrat. He only becomes a Democrat when he goes to run for the presidency, in which case he registers for a Democrat or as a Democrat like a couple months beforehand, and then he runs. And I get it. It's a party. And they are pretty open. They're pretty tolerable to a lot of different people. But, if that's my party and I'm the chair of that party, I'm going to be like, dude, what are you doing? It's so obvious. Like, you're not a member of this party. The Democrats really need to have some kind of rule that you need to be a registered Democrat for, like, I don't know, at least 5 years or 10 years before you can nominate yourself to run for president, for the nomination at least, within that party. Now, you can run third party. It's not like I'm saying that you have to be in a party for years before you can be president. The Republicans could set their own rules, or you could run as an independent. But if you're the Democrats, if you're the DNC, why are you going to do this? Like, I get it. They're scared of what the progressives are going to say. I got news, dudes. The progressives are hurting your party. They're making your party go from a palatable party that has a decent shot each time against the Republicans. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, to becoming a party where everybody is going to look at you as like, oh, those guys, the lunatics, the crazies. I mean, the progressives of the Democratic Party are slowly Corbynizing the Democratic Party. They're making the Democratic Party have no chance of winning again. Like, in other words, if the progressives controlled the Democratic Party for, say, the next 20 years, there would not be a Democrat in the White House probably for at least the next 30 years or longer. They might even manage to just destroy the party altogether. So it would just, the U.S. would become, they would go from having the Republicans as this somewhat natural governing party over the last course of the decades, to having single party democracy, not like a socialist state or something where there's just one party and everybody's has to run for that party or whatever. No, it wouldn't be like that. It would be kind of like how Japan is with the Liberal Democratic Party, or how South Africa is, where sure it's a democracy and you can run with another party, but everybody knows it's almost guaranteed that that this one party is going to win again. So now you can have diversity within that party, of course, but no, if the Bernieites and those kinds of people actually managed to win. I think it was Claire Voltaire. I forget who actually came up with it, but they called him and his supporters the Branch Bernardians, which is great. That's a good reference to their cultishness. I like that. The Branch Bernardians or whatever. No, it's great. Yeah, no, they would tank the party. They would kill the party. The Democratic Party would go the way of the USSR if Redline Bernie got his way. Breadlines and then bankruptcy. Same in the Democratic Party. Breadlines and then bankruptcy. Same deal. That's all these guys know how to do. All they know how to do is lose. They lose on the world stage. They lose on the domestic stage. They lose at home. They lose abroad. They lose with money. They lose with votes. They're fringe and cringe. They're fringe and cringe. The progressives had no shot. And before you say to me, hey Kevin, Cenk said 70% of America's progressive. Oh man, that's cringe. I've seen that clip too. He said that 70% of America is progressive. Okay. Basically, that's what he said. And you're like, wait, what? He's like citing some poll that had, and I think it was even by a left-wing outlet, that claimed that 70% of Americans support some form of universal healthcare. And so he extrapolates from that 70% of America is progressive. What? Like, even if you support universal healthcare, that doesn't mean that you support Bernie's Medicare for All initiative. That's kind of a leap there, bro. Jank. And by the way, Cenk is a CEO. Like that's a meme. That's a meme that I tweeted out today, right? Cenk is a CEO. Bernie is a landlord. Bernie is a millionaire. I mean, Bernie, I forget who it was. It may have been my friend Dan who had mentioned this in the chat. I believe it was Dan actually, and he said, earlier on, he said that Bernie used to talk about how the millionaires and billionaires were out of touch and how they were the problem, and the working class Americans needed to recognize that it was the millionaires and the billionaires who were the problem in the country. And now that he's a millionaire, now he only talks about the billionaires, which is so great. Because that if he became a billionaire all of a sudden tomorrow, he'd be talking about the trillionaires and how they're the real problem. Oh, no, it's so great. It's like there's that meme of all the people whom Breadline Bernie has lifted out of poverty, and it's 4 different pictures of Breadline Bernie looking all smug and stuff. No, he's a fringy dude. He's a bitter dude. He's a cringy dude. He's got no chance of beating Donald Trump. No chance whatsoever. I mean, it's I'd say less than 0, but that's not mathematically possible. But you know what I mean. Let's see, what else do we have here? How do you think Joe should respond to Bernie's accusation that he supported the Iraq War? Well, obviously, Joe Biden has a public and a private position right now. Obviously, there are quite a few Branch Bernardians in his party. There are about 27% of the Democrats that are diehard Bernie supporters. They were with Bernie from the beginning. They'll be with Bernie till the end. About 27% or so, 28%. It's a little over a quarter of the party are these cringy progressives. Biden needs to recognize, there are some that are in the Warren camp or the Buttigieg camp that are more progressive, but not necessarily Bernie level. And they've been brainwashed their whole life. They've been inculcated by Michael Moore and Oliver Stone and Kremlin Kyle and the Young Turks, all of these other outlets. A lot of the mainstream media to see war as this, war bad. Okay. War bad. Okay. Like the whole Mr. Mackey thing. he can't necessarily go out there and say, "Oh yeah, I would have taken out Saddam faster than Bush." He can't exactly do that, unfortunately, because we live in the era of cringe. So he has to pretend like he didn't support it. What he should say, with respect to it, is say, "Well, right now, say, yeah, I voted what I felt given the information at the time." Say that. Don't necessarily shy away from it. Don't necessarily say I'm just against it or whatever. Say something that's kind of a half approach to it. I understand it's kind of cringy. It's kind of a bit disingenuous, but he has to do what he has to do because these idiots, these losers, the haters and traitors, the fifth columns, the Russia Today folk, the TYT crowd, they've made intervention into this thing that can make you seem socially undesirable or whatever. I get it. They've made dictators look cool. They've made licking the boots of dictators something that everybody wants to do if they want to be socially accepted. Biden has to toe a line there. I don't really have a good answer to that because Biden supported the intervention. So I guess my best sort of response would be to not lie about it and say, "Oh, I wasn't in support of it" or whatever, but to just not really bring it up too much right now. And then once you are the nominee, use it against Trump because he can attack Trump on foreign policy because Trump has been willing to sit down with dictators. Trump writes beautiful love letters to communist butchers such as Kim and Xi Jinping. There's no way that wouldn't help Biden in the general. But right now, in a primary, unfortunately, in a primary, basically the rule of thumb is you kind of have to market yourself as more left than you really are in the primary. Because in a primary, you have lower voter turnout than a general. And the people who are going to show up to vote are the most enthusiastic. And generally, those tend to be like the Branch Bernardian types, that sort of stuff. But if you were running in a general, you have to position yourself as more right than you probably are. This, of course, is if you're a Democrat. It's the reverse if you're a Republican. If you're in a Republican primary, you want to go like full right wing sort of thing. And then if you're in a general election, you want to come back towards the center. That the people use the term triangulation as if it's a slur, like, "Oh, he's triangulating." It's like, yeah, well, he wants to win. Like, that's kind of what you need to do. I think that Biden should adopt that trajectory, but in as least a dishonest way as possible, because he's one of the few politicians out there that does have this persona of credibility. A lot of people see him as a credible and honest guy. Now Bernie also, a lot of people see him as credible and honest. And in fairness to Bernie largely is honest. He is radical. He's a radical socialist and he's honest about it. If you're a radical and you're honest, that doesn't necessarily help you with anybody but your cultist loyalists. And sure, that's big in a primary, but in a general, is 28% of Democrats goes down to 14% of the electorate. So, or less, because there's independents too. So, okay, so Bernie has like a 12% base and Trump has a 30% base. And then you go for everybody in between. Oh, Bernie would have to climb uphill so hard in that. Like, his base is like a third the size of what Trump's base is. Trump's base is huge, by the way. Like, let's just keep it real here. I got a lot of issues with Trump, but the majority of Republicans are solidly backing Trump, and about a third or so are diehard Trump fans. Whereas with Bernie, as far as the whole Democratic Party goes, he's got about 28% or so. The thing is with Trump, I've seen numbers as high as 40% that are in his base of support, but there's only about 10% of the party in the Republican side that is just anti-Trump. He's got like 90% of the party. Whereas with Bernie, even if he wins the nomination, he's going to already have about half of the party that's going to be like hashtag never Bernie, hashtag Bernie bros, all that sort of stuff. They're not going to consider this guy. So he's already got no chance there. Trump has a massive base, Bernie has a small base. Now you can say, well, Bernie's base is energized. Okay, but have you seen the energy the Trump supporters have? Like they'll drive across states to go and see him at rallies and stuff. They're very vocal. They're on the internet. They're everywhere. Trump has a very loyal fan base. I would argue that Trump's voters, I wouldn't say they're more enthusiastic necessarily, but they're more numerous for sure, the enthusiastic ones, than Bernie's are. So Bernie has to make up more room, but he's already at a disadvantage just on the incumbent thing. And Trump's had all these resources and time that Bernie won't have. Because let's keep it real, if Bernie does get the nomination, it will have been because of a long, drawn-out primary process that eventually sees him clinch the nomination. Whereas Trump's going to have all this time to prep against him. And Trump doesn't even need it, because all he has to do is say, my opponent is a commie. And it's over. It's over, because how is he going to argue against that? Trump's just going to ask him, what did you say about the Cuban Revolution? And Bernie's going to be like, well, I said it was deep, bro. It was deep. You know, to me personally, it's very deep to us. That's what he said. You can go and look it up. That's the quote from him. For us, the Cuban Revolution is very deep. It's very deep, bro. It's very deep, bro. Man, it's very deep, man. No, I'm serious. The only thing deep about the Cuban Revolution were the mass graves for the political opponents that they executed. So, no, I hate Breadline Bernie. I'm done with this guy. Breadline Bernie. Let's see. I need to tweet Trump post of, I want Bernie to be the nomination, to someone who believes Bernie would crush Trump. Oh, no, a lot of people think that he would crush Trump. Oh, it's hilarious. Like, I watch TYT every couple days to keep up with their talking points. I watch Kremlin Kyle. Like, you know, my friend Reese, he also talks about this too. He watches Kremlin Kyle. Like, we do not like Kremlin Kyle at all, but we have to sit through his videos to see the talking points so that we can keep up with them and report it for all of you and condense it for all of you so that everybody can be aware of how insidious and pernicious these talking points are, and that we can debunk it and be aware of them. So if you appreciate the work that I do in sitting through all the cringe, in binging the cringe, I'm telling you, even just one video by Kremlin Kyle is a binge of cringe. Go to patreon.com/superpowered broadcasting. So, you know, help your boy out. What else do we have here? Oh, no, but I was going to say, with respect to what Reason Vision had said here, yes, the main argument seems to be, well, you know, Bernie would win big in the Rust Belt and stuff because Bernie's an actual working class champion and all this stuff, and Trump just pretends to be. One, even if that's true, perception matters more than the reality in politics here. Trump has the perception of being the people's champion. Bernie has the perception of being a bitter old SJW communist. Okay. Second, the working people of the Rust Belt already have a champion that they align with. It's Donald Trump. How is Bernie going to argue against that? Like, what? He's going to go in there and say, okay, well, I also support the economic message that Trump says. And they're going to be like, okay, but so does Trump. So we're with him. What's your social message? And then Bernie's going to be like, my SJWism. And they're going to be like, cringe, bro, and not vote for him. Like, they're not going to vote for him. They're too conservative for him. Also, they don't really like the idea of having to be dependent on the government. They don't really like that. That's part of the reason why they're upset, because they've lost jobs and everything, and some of them have had to become dependent on government services. They really don't like that. They're really not down for Bernie's socialism. They're not really down for his welfare statism. They'd rather have the economic optimism that Trump offers them. Now, I don't think that Trump's going to deliver on that, but I understand why it appeals to them. Of course, I understand why it appeals to them. They're not looking for a government handout. They're fully capable people that are in industries that no longer have a big employment sector anymore. They don't want the government to just come in and say, oh, here's my socialism, and then raise everybody's taxes. Like, they don't want to be a burden on the country. They want to be able to contribute to the country. Oh, Bernie's going to get crushed. No, I'm serious. I'm serious here. I'm saying it. I'm calling it right now. If he gets the nomination, he's going to lose those Rust Belt states way harder than Clinton lost them. Like, Clinton lost those states by like 70,000 votes, like Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania. She lost them by like only like 70,000 votes. Now, sure, Trump won. He gets the votes regardless, right? Winner take all. It's electoral college. I gotcha. Sure. Is Bernie going to lose by 700,000 votes? No. No, he's going to lose by like 1 million votes in those states. It's going to be, I'm serious. It's going to be 40 plus states red, 10 minus states blue. Like, again, I'm not saying that Trump's going to take 48 states and Bernie's going to take 2. But I'm also not saying that that's not going to happen if he gets the nomination. So, hashtag 1984 2.0. What else do we have here? Philip says coronavirus is spreading among the Iranian regime. Several officials have already died, hoping the Ayatollah gets in eyes. Oh, cheers to that. Cheers to that. I don't have any wine right now, but I've got water, so cheers to that, my dude. Oh, man. Yeah, screw the Ayatollah. Reason Vision writes, he actually said that. Sanders is actually the one caring about the people. Oh, man. What else is there? Reboot. Israel will develop. Oh, well, I should say the idea that Bernie actually cares about anybody is comical. He's not willing to make any compromises to get any meaningful things done for real people. He just has his idealism and his bitterness and his obstinance and his stubbornness and his obfuscations. And he has his 3 houses, of course, and he's a landlord and he's a millionaire and all this sort of stuff. And I don't hate millionaires. I don't hate billionaires. But if you're going to run on your message being billionaires bad, millionaires bad, and then you yourself are a millionaire, it's kind of cringe. It's kind of disingenuous. It's kind of hypocritical. And it's kind of disgusting. So what else do we have here? Rebu says Israel will develop a vaccine against the coronavirus in 3 weeks. Will the whole boycott Israel crowd refuse to take it? The Iranian regime. Oh, no. I mean, we know from North Korea, of course. Yeah, they would refuse to take it. At least the regime would. The people of Iran refused to step on the flag of Israel after the terrorist butcher Soleimani was murdered. And they had the forced vigils and the forced mourning and the praises and all that. And they had the flags put down. And if you'll recall, the idea was that in the public squares, the people would walk over the American and Israeli flags. And instead, the people walked around them. Oh, that takes big courage in Iran. You can get executed for that. And the people, they had a critical mass and they said, nah, I'm out. And a few of the diehards were still walking on them, like, I'm a good boy, daddy, to the Ayatollah. And it was super cringe. And, you know, those are just like the most meek and weak and feeble pigeons out there. But no, the Iranian people, they were based and they were pilled. Yeah, no, unfortunately, the Ayatollah would reject it, of course, because like North Korea, they let 3 million people starve and they're like, you know, we choose to be self-sufficient or whatever. And it's like, well, no, it's the regime. It's the regime, the royal we here. Yeah, no, I'm a huge supporter of Israel. It's hard for me in words to encapsulate how much I support Israel and how much I despise the regime over in Tehran, right? So what else do we have here? Reason Vision writes, I've seen Iranians licking some sacred altar to get the coronavirus. Then someone who said, what could the government do to stop the spread? Blamed America and Zionists for all the evils in the world. Oh, yeah, it's always the Zionists. Oh, the Zionists are responsible for all the evils in the world. That's why Israel is a blooming paradise in the desert. And the Arab dictatorships in the region are, oh, they must be burgeoning workers' paradises or whatever. No, they're not very pleasant places to live. So, I mean, what's a better system for humans? Where would you rather live? Where would you rather live? Like, I'm serious. Even if you're like one of those edgy, tanky Chapo boys out there who says Israel's an apartheid state, bro, and Actually, Assad's the good guy. He protects Christians. Okay. Where would you rather live? Like, I just keep it real, because you'll say it to yourself, and yourself deep down, you'd rather be born in Israel, right? You'd rather be born in Israel because now, sure, you might think, no, I'd rather be born in Syria because it would be awesome to be Assad. It's like, yeah, you're not going to be the dear leader, dude. You're not going to be the dear leader of 30 million people. It ain't happening. That's the reason with all these tankies and everything, they always imagine that after the revolution happens, they'll be the dear leader. It's like, no, there can only be one dear leader. Dumbasses. So no, they know deep down. They know deep down. It's Israel. It's Israel. Of course it's Israel. Israel's the only liberal democracy in the region. They're the only capitalist system in the region. They're the only region that has any degree of secularity. Oh, Israel's based. No, Israel for NATO, 100%. Israel for NATO. Let's make it happen. Let's give Turkey the boot and give entrance tickets to Ukraine and Israel. And let's take Crimea back. Russia can either hand it back, or go to war. And they don't want to go to war because they know that they would lose that. And all that Putin cares about is his champagne and his Mercedes and living another day to spend his ill-gotten trillions of dollars of wealth. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. That's it. He would back off so fast and say, well, I would lose the nuclear war, and he would hand it over. And if he didn't, let's keep it real, the U.S. would win that war anyway pretty fast. They would back down very soon. I don't think that it would go nuclear at all. But if it did, the U.S. would win that too. But that's a topic for another video. What else do we have here? I'm just going to wrap this up kind of quick and talk about how the implications of this. I'm talking about the original topic, of course, Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg dropping out of the race, what it means for Biden going into Super Tuesday. Well, I saw some interesting stats that had indicated in the polling that prior to them dropping out, Biden was polling at 13% in California against Bernie and all the others. 13%. In other words, with the 15% minimum threshold in order to get delegates, he would have got nothing. He got nothing. It would have been a disaster. But now that these guys are out, even if he only gets 1% support from Buttigieg and 1% support from Klobuchar, which, keep it real, he's going to get more than that. They're endorsing him. He's going to get more than that. He would make the 15% threshold. Now he gets delegates. Oh, that changes the world. That takes it from Bernie having this very clear advantage going into the nomination or to the convention to we're going to be a lot closer. Like, Bernie is, realistically speaking, here's what's probably going to happen in Super Tuesday. Biden's going to do well in some states, Southeast, that sort of thing, Alabama, those kinds of states and stuff. If I recall, Alabama was one of those states that's up. Bernie's going to do decent in the Northeast. Texas is probably going to go to Joe Biden, but not by that big of a margin. Unfortunately, we have to keep it real. Bernie has a decent ground game. Bernie's going to pick up a decent amount of delegates in Texas. California is the one that's harder to tell. I'm thinking it's probably going to go Bernie, but Biden's going to win by a substantial margin more than he would have, that the polling had indicated prior to Buttigieg and Klobuchar dropping out. Now, who's going to take home more delegates Tuesday night? We don't know, obviously. I think given the size of California and given the relatively even delegate sizes of some of the other states, realistically speaking, Bernie's probably going to come away with like me and another 50 delegates or so. But that doesn't mean he's going to get the nomination. I think Biden is going to clean up pretty soon because it's going to swing back in his direction. Now, it's possible that Biden just wins the night, right? Could happen. It's also possible that Bernie, I guess, could win the night, though it's unlikely in my view. Really unlikely. I think it's more going to be split. California, of course, is huge. So California alone makes a difference. Like 400 plus delegates up for stake there. I think for grabs there. I think that Bernie probably marginally wins California right now. That's kind of my view. I hope I'm wrong, of course. I really hope I'm wrong about that. But I still expect to see tears. I still expect to see whining and crying by the Bernie bros because they're going to lose Texas. And their whole thing was, oh, we're going to win in Texas. And that'll show the moderates. It's like, no, they had momentum prior to these guys dropping out. It's not going to be enough. Now, as I was mentioning earlier on in the video, of course, it's kind of too late to have that big of an impact. Now, of course, they're not going to be on the ballot, so that has an impact in the sense that you don't get to vote for them anymore unless you write them in, of course. But they could have got out sooner. Again, I'm just asking, what the hell was Pete Buttigieg thinking, even staying in to go through South Carolina? He knew he was going to lose. He knew he wasn't even going to get very many delegates. He knew he was going to perform miserably. He knew that he had very little African American support. What was he doing? What was he doing? Was he just a noob about it? Or did he think that staying in and getting his ass kicked in South Carolina would prove to Biden that, he's willing to stick it in and that that'll be enough for Biden to offer him a job in the administration? Now, Biden did offer him a job in the administration, but I would hope, in a better world, Biden would have offered him the job, a week ago, a week ago. Biden could have gained more delegates in South Carolina. He could have gained a lot more. Like I was talking with my friend Reese about this, he could have won bigger. He could have won bigger. And sure, he won, but every delegate matters. I just hope that those few delegates extra that he could have won don't make the difference at a brokered convention or anything, So I hope it doesn't come to that. I hope Biden cleans it up. Hope Biden cleans it up really quickly. I'm sick of Bernie. I'm sick of Bernie. When I was in high school, I'm going to wrap up this video pretty soon, but when I was in high school, I called myself a Democratic Socialist. I watched TYT unironically. Oh, you can cringe. Like I cringe. It is super cringe, right? Big yikes. But I like Bernie. And I thought that he was kind of an honest guy. And, even after all that, and, I grew up and I got educated on economics and everything. And I realized, oh, that's pretty cringe, dude. I still kind of thought that Bernie was kind of a nice guy and that it was just his rabid sort of supporters that were too enthusiastic and zealous that gave his side a bad name. But it's become crystal clear to me. Bernie is well aware of what the Bernie bros do. He's well aware of their toxicity. And he has only token condemnations that are kind of half-hearted and kind of meek and weak with respect to them when it's forced upon him, when the occasion arises that he has to call them out. And moreover, it is the nomination of figures such as the cockroach Linda Sarsour, which my friend Billy Bong the Lit, go check out his channel, Billy Bong. He points out all the time and has done extensive work into exposing, is a profuse anti-Semite, defends female genital mutilation, attacks women who are opposed to it, attacks women based on any sort of opposition to the practice. She is somebody who's disgusting. Linda Sarsour is beyond disgusting. She's beyond deplorable. And Bernie Sanders, knowing that he's a Jew and being overwhelmed with both a sense of Jewish guilt as well as quasi-white guilt, as well as this ultimate sort of moral duplicitous attitude and this hackery that he has, said, how can I compensate for this weakness I have with my base? In other words, he knows that the progressive base hates Jews, hates Israel, this sort of thing, sees Jews naturally with skepticism, thinks of them as dirty capitalist pigs, and reads Karl Marx talk about how Jews are bad and all this stuff. He knows that base is his base of support, and he has to wonder, how do I appease them? How do I respond to them? Because what somebody smart would do is say, I don't want those people, don't have any place supporting me. Go support, a neo-Nazi or something. You're not in my camp. But no, he doesn't do that. He doesn't do that. He says, hey, look, how can I prove to you that I'm a good Jew? Oh, cringe. So he appoints the blatant public anti-Semite Linda Sarsour to be his surrogate. I'm not making this up. You can go and look into it. He appointed Linda Sarsour. She is on his campaign as a surrogate. That's like if Donald Trump had David Duke as his surrogate. Like, Donald Trump never went that far. Donald Trump had some really kind of yikes type people around him and stuff. Like, he had Steve Bannon and stuff. But like, even Steve Bannon hasn't gone to the level of Linda Sarsour. Like, Steve Bannon has said some racist stuff. He said some stuff that's really, it's pretty offensive, right? It doesn't approach the level of toxicity that Linda Sarsour has been promoting and propagating throughout the political discourse. The Louis Farrakhan sort of stuff. It's just it's disgusting. It's blatantly disgusting. And so to kind of wrap this thought up, I went from viewing Bernie as this kind of, as I got older, of course, right, as this guy that I disagreed with, but that I could say was at least a nice guy, to now it's apparent to me that he's a dirtbag. He's pernicious. He's insidious. He is disgusting. His supporters, his base of support is profusely problematic, and they must be stopped. They must be stopped. And if it did come down to it, if it was Bernie versus Trump, even though it doesn't make a difference, even though it's obvious, no matter what anybody says, anybody in the media, anybody on YouTube, anybody says Trump would win that no matter what, I will make videos supporting Trump 100%, because you can't have Bernie Sanders running the vanguard of the liberal order. You can't have. Now Donald Trump's bad. Donald Trump does apologetics for Putin and everything, but Bernie Sanders is far more intelligent than Donald Trump is. Donald Trump does apologetics for dictators, largely because he's kind of childish and doesn't really think too much and likes their style and thinks it's cool how they have power and stuff. Bernie Sanders is very intelligent, very politically aware, and very much in support of dictators. In other words, Bernie knows what he's doing. Trump kind of bumbles around, and sometimes Trump makes the right call. Sometimes Trump takes out Soleimani. If that was Bernie Sanders and the generals came to him and said, hey, look, we've been tracking this guy for months. Here's what he's done. He's an enemy of the Republic. He's killed 400,000 people in the region. He is festering terrorism in Iraq to undermine all the efforts of the intervention from 2003. He must be stopped, and we have a window here to kill him with basically no civilian casualties. Mr. President, do you approve this? Donald Trump said, sure. In fairness to Trump, credit to Trump. Trump said, yes. Yes, General, go ahead. You can do it. Bernie Sanders would say, what are you, a neocon? I'm not doing that, you neocon. Get out of my office, you neocon. You're fired, neocon. And then he'd go and sit down and have tea with Kremlin Kyle and talk about how Tulsi Gabbard is such a nice woman and how he's considering hiring her to be like his press director or something. Oh, it would be so cringe. So cringe. Like, Donald Trump is orders of magnitude better than Breadline Bernie. Not to mention, Breadline Bernie is a literal socialist. I mean, it's just on domestic stuff. He would tank the U.S. economy. I mean, Donald Trump has done some really stupid stuff that's really kind of hurt U.S. Stock markets and global stock markets, mind you. Bernie Sanders, I mean, you ain't seen nothing yet. Just wait. Let's see what kind of Great Depression Bernie can bring about. Oh, sounds like fun, right? Oh, man. What do we have here in the chat? Let's see. The revolutionaries are the second to be executed after the bourgeois to make sure the new system is not overthrown again. Right. Yeah. Well, it's the most brutal comrade who prevails, right? So a lot of the intelligentsia in the revolutionaries would be for sure. Like I'm saying, like if they decided that they're going to go an anti-democratic route, I'll have a video on this. I think, there is a movement of people out there that would they would be the people that you would suspect would support Bernie, but they don't support Bernie. They would actually support Trump against Bernie because they think that if Trump defeats Bernie, that all the socialists will now realize that democracy is degenerate and they need to overturn the system and do the boogaloo or whatever, that sort of thing. The dirtbags and stuff. Those guys want an actual revolution in the technical meaning of the term, right? Bernie always talks about my revolution, but he's talking electorally and all this sort of stuff. Yeah. I mean, as time goes on, I'm more dubious. I mean, he's kind of a dirtbag kind of guy. I'm going to keep it real. Is there dog whistling there? Perhaps, but it's not as overt as the full on tankies these days do, where they say, they look at, say, when Jeremy Corbyn lost big in the UK, and they rooted for Johnson because for Boris Johnson because they thought that if Jeremy Corbyn lost big, that it would show to the lefties finally that they can't trust democracy because the conservatives can win in democracy. So therefore, let's just overthrow the system and do a communist revolution, right? Like the commies and stuff. They'll be rooting for Trump. So Bernie's got an uphill battle, even if he gets the nomination. Let's see. Assad spread the rumor that Israel was behind ISIS and Al Qaeda, and that caused ISIS and Al Qaeda to execute their members because of concern that they were Israeli agents. Oh, man. No, I mean, there's a lot of conspiracism out there. What else is there here? Funny how the Bernie Bros mocks Biden for slurring his words sometimes. Bernie, they often. I'll finish the thought that you put here. Of course, your quote for slurring his words. Sometimes they ignore Bernie having a heart attack. See, the president has access to the best medical personnel in the country, so medical issues can be a problem for sure. They are things that should be taken into account when deciding who you're going to vote for, whom you're going to vote for. However, it's not necessarily make or break thing if somebody's like unhealthy or overweight, like in Trump's case, because you got the best doctors, the best medical care, the best in the world, right? You're the president of the United States. So it can be overcome and mitigated. But in the case of Bernie, the thing that bothers me more than that is how his supporters and everybody, they'll say, Bloomberg has no charisma. He's dry, no charisma at all. He has the charisma of, grass growing. And I'm like, but wait, I don't like Bloomberg. But okay, Bernie just shouts at things and gets bitter and just shouts some more. Like, he's not charismatic at all. Trump is 1,000 times more charismatic than Bernie. Trump is a former reality TV show host who has good nicknames and one-liners and is able to, sure, he slurs words and stuff too all the time. Of course, you're going to have that happen when you do public speaking as your job, essentially, right? I mean, I'm sure you can find clips. I'm sure that somebody's going to make YTPs of me slurring my words over the course of the last 10 months of superpower broadcasting videos, of course. But that happens when you tend to talk a lot, right? You're just increasing the probability of unfortunate errors occurring, of course. No, Bernie has no charisma at all. Like at all. Trump is the kind of guy that he'll say things like "Little Marco" and stuff, and everybody's like kind of funny, and then he like looks in the camera and almost kind of winks at the audience, is kind of like, I'm your guy, like / your guy / and he does the memes and stuff, and he tweets out a Pepe of himself and all this sort of stuff. And you're like, okay, well, I mean, I guess he's politically savvy. Bernie just shouts into the void and gets bitter, even though he's a freaking millionaire, and talks about how the millionaires, well, he doesn't talk about how the millionaires are a problem anymore because he's one of them now. He talks about how the billionaires are the problem now. Oh, I mean, it's so see-through. It's so see-through. I'm done with this guy. I'm done with this guy. There is nothing. There's nothing about Bernie that's any sort of saving grace here. It's Joe Biden. It's Joe Biden that is the best here. So true, just the endless hypocrisy of the Bernie Bros. Oh, the Bernie Bros. The Bernie Bros are a joke. I mean, one of the things that the Bernie Bros, I'll kind of end on this point. It's one of the ones that you'll see around a lot often is like, healthcare is a human right. And then they'll make their little argument for like Medicare for all, which, by the way, that's economically infeasible. Never going to happen, ever. And if it did, the US would go the way of the Soviet Union and go bankrupt. But in the case of, well, not necessarily just that, it's all of the programs that he wants, like the universal education, all this stuff, just free everything. Okay, free bankruptcy. Let's do that. That's basically his platform at this point, because it worked out so well for the Soviet Union and everything. It's like, now, sure, it was a good thing the Soviets went bankrupt, but you don't want to go bankrupt when that's your country, right? You want your enemies to go bankrupt. So why would you vote for somebody who's going to make you go bankrupt? That's dumb. That's not a bright move. That's a dumb move, dim move. So they always talk about how, healthcare is a human right, at the same time as defending Saddam Hussein, as well as Fidel Castro, Vladimir Putin, Kim Jong-un, and various other anti-American dictators, not to mention the Ayatollah. Human rights? These guys don't care about human rights at all. They don't know the concept of human rights. They don't care. They don't care at all. Castro could just shoot 7,000, and he's done this in the past, the Castro regime. Just kill, 1,000 people for being gay, right? Because they were liberal bourgeois degenerates because they were gay. They didn't fit the socialist realist mode of what it means to be a heterosexual, breadwinning, working male factory worker or whatever, right? Just execute it. Oh, and these guys, they defend it and say, well, actually, the U.S. is the bad guy, okay? Because I have to work at McDonald's because I'm in lack of an ambitious loser who lives with mom or whatever. That's them. That's these guys. They're the Cheetos boys. They're the Hot Pockets boys. That's these guys. That's the Bernie Bros. They're the Neckbeard boys. That's them. They're the cringe gang. That's them. They're Squad L. They take L's. That's all they know how to do is take L's. They are infected with an external locus of control. In other words, everything else is the fault of the world, the universe, and the government. And the government owes them everything, and they have no sense of personal responsibility. They're the kinds of people that if they lose the lottery that they just paid a ticket for, they blame the government. The government should have given me a winning lottery ticket, that sort of thing. It's just, these guys are a disgrace. And if they had an internal locus of control, I can tell you they would not be supporters of Bernie. They wouldn't be supporters of Bernie. In fact, the only person that has an internal locus of control that's in the Bernie camp is probably Bernie himself, because he's had a career and everything in government, and he's managed to make a lot of money off of these people over the years. A lot of money. I mean, people say $1 million isn't a lot of money anymore. I hear you. I mean, yeah, relative to 30 years ago, it's 50% as much as it used to be, right? Of course. No, it's still a lot of money. He's a millionaire. That's still a lot of money. Let's just keep it real. That's still a lot of money. Would you like $1 million? It's kind of a lot of money, right? That'd make a difference in most people's lives. And pretty soon that would make a huge difference in Bloomberg's life, after he spent like $100 billion, or I guess he's only got $60 billion on Pornhub ads so that he can win California. I mean, oh man, imagine spending more money than all the other candidates combined, which is what he's doing right now. and like not even placing top 3. Oh, how sad. Oh, how sad. I mean, Bloomberg's a joke. He's not a serious candidate. That's why I don't really even like to talk with him too much, because about him too much, because at least Bernie, he is a serious candidate. I don't like him, but he is a serious candidate who has a serious chance. Bloomberg is just a spoiler. He like the at best he's Ross Perot 2.0. It's like, okay, you're going to spend all this money to hand Bernie the nomination. I mean, then there were some conspiracy theories that him and Bernie were working together because he takes away votes from Biden so that Bernie can get the nomination. Now I don't buy that. That's kind of a meme. That's kind of a joke, right? That's people just kind of playing around and everything. But I mean that it would be kind of funny if it were true, right? I mean, because that's the most difference in the world that Bloomberg can make. It's not like he's going to win. The best thing that he can hope to do is make as much of a difference that he hands Bernie the nomination. Oh, again, how sad. Oh, how sad is this dude? He's a goofball. He's going to be remembered in history now, not as the successful self-made billionaire who made the largest net worth off of business to business innovation, right? No. He's not going to be that guy. He's going to be the dude who handed Bernie Sanders the nomination, and then he got trounced by Trump. I mean, oh man, what a sad legacy, right? So I'm taking another look at the chat, see if there's anything good here, and then I think I'm gonna call it a night, my friends. I'm also gonna just check messages very quickly here. Let's see what we got. Yeah, yes, I did a meme on Twitter. Yeah, no, there's a lot of good memes about Bernie. Thanks for watching. We had about 10 viewers most of the stream. It's pretty good. Again, I didn't really give you guys too much notice tonight, but I appreciate you guys tuning in. Tomorrow's going to be really interesting. I'm not sure what time I'm going to be on to analyze Super Tuesday. I will, of course, be streaming. So tell people share it around. Superpower Broadcasting is going to be, analyzing, streaming, commenting on Super Tuesday. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully, we're going to see a lot of tears. We're going to see a lot of crying and whining from the Bernie bros. It's not going to go too well for them. Unfortunately, I'm kind of a boomer right now when it comes to this streaming stuff, and don't really know how to put other feeds and videos into the stream. But we're probably going to take a look at the Young Turks at some point, see what Cenk's saying. Junk Cenk, hashtag Cenk is the CEO. Good to take a look at him. He's probably going to be really sad. He's probably going to be really mad. He's probably gonna have a lot to say. Probably a lot of conspiracy theories out there. Even if Bernie wins California, he's going to be saying, well, the DNC rigged Texas because we were winning Texas, and then all of a sudden Bernie lost. It's like, yeah, because Buttigieg and Klobuchar dropped out and endorsed Biden. It's like, that kind of made a difference. In the last little while. But no, it was the DNC rig. It was an evil, Neil Good DNC rig. That's the line that we're gonna get from TYT, and then we're gonna get the line how Bernie's still gonna crush it, of course, and all this, and it's like, yeah, we'll see about that. We'll see about that. I mean, it's possible that he gets the nomination, of course, but I can tell you, the day that Bernie gets the nomination, if that happens, that you've basically nominated Trump for a second term. That's what the result is. In other words, you can skip the next 6 months or 5 months or however long it is. Right then and there, there's a 100% chance that Trump is your president for the next 4 years. That there's not even a point in having the general election. Like, what? You're gonna go through and sit there? I mean, no, there is a point. Don't get me wrong. It'll be so much fun to live stream 2020 November when it's Trump versus Bernie, and Bernie's lost all but Vermont and Minnesota. And Cenk's like, but we're still waiting on results from Hawaii. We're still waiting on results from Hawaii. Yeah, Trump's up 2 points, but we're still waiting on this one county here that there's a 5% chance that it might make a difference, and then maybe Bernie will be up for another 5 minutes. And you're like, wait, what? And you look at the bottom, and it's like 482 electoral delegates already awarded, confirmed to Donald Trump. And you're like, 28 electoral delegates to Bernie Sanders. And it's like, no, 26 actually. We've adjusted it. And you're like, oh man, can you imagine? Like, I mean, it was funny. It was funny when like it wasn't funny in like the lethal sort of sense of, this is a good thing that this happened when Clinton lost to Trump. But some of the reactions were kind of funny. Were kind of funny because they did a lot of damage to Clinton's chances. Of course, the media in general did a lot of damage to her chances. Calling her a warmonger and a neocon and all these sorts of things and buzzwords because she understands how foreign policy works. And she's not afraid to make tough decisions like a real leader in times of crisis and in times of peace abroad to ensure the peace remains at home. She acted proactively, but we're bad. We're bad. That's their lie. It's no, Young Turks is a joke. Young Turks is a joke, but it would be worth waiting through those months just to see Cenk break down, get mad, get super mad, and then just go off on the moderates and everything. I mean, there's a chance that people at the network that might be perceived as too moderate get fired that night for not being as mad as Cenk and everything. And I can see Anna saying how, this is all the fault of the DNC and all this. And it's like, no, it's only your own fault. Bernie got the nomination. He did his best and he lost 48 states, but he won 2. He won 2. It wasn't a shutout. It was not a shutout. He won 2. He won 2. Sure, Trump won 48, but hey, Bernie did win Vermont. Now, there's going to be that kind of like how when Bernie won New Hampshire in the primary a little while ago, when Bernie won New Hampshire, TYT was like, yes. And they had like the American music. It's like, da, 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 da. And they're all like confetti and everything. And they're like, yeah, Bernie won New Hampshire. And everybody's like, yeah, of course. Like, we all knew he was going to win New Hampshire. Like, that's kind of his base. That's kind of like saying like, yes, Trump won West Virginia. It's like, yeah, like, of course he was going to win West Virginia. That's not really something to like be super proud of. Like, sure, it's a win. It's a win, of course. Yeah, you want to be happy that you won, but not be like, yes, proved you wrong. It's like, no. All the Biden supporters knew he was going to win New Hampshire. It's like on that night, they're going to be like, yes, he took Vermont. It's like, okay. Trump took California. Trump took Texas. Trump took Washington. Trump took Oregon. Trump took Michigan, Pennsylvania. But hey, Bernie won Minnesota and Vermont. So good for him. It's like, yeah, we still got Vermont. It's like, yeah, you got Vermont. It's like, good for you. I mean, yeah, he probably won't win 48 states if it's Bernie. Maybe he wins 42. Maybe he wins 41. Maybe he wins 40. I'm talking about Trump, of course. Is it going to be close like it was against Clinton? No, it's not. No, it's not. It was actually, I know how Donald Trump talked about how it was like the biggest electoral win in history. No, it wasn't. It wasn't. There were so many elections that had bigger differentials in the electoral turnout, delegates wise. Trump won decently, like, typical sort of election. It was a win. Wasn't really that big of a win electorally, but he won. That's what matters, right? But in this case, Bernie, the other thing is that I haven't mentioned this yet. Bernie would lose the popular vote if it was Bernie versus Trump. Like, it wouldn't even be close. Like, Clinton won the popular vote, and she can talk about how legitimacy-wise she won the popular vote, but keep it real, Trump's president. That's what matters. Bernie wouldn't even have that to fall back on. Like, he would probably lose the popular vote not like significantly in electoral terms. Like he'd still get millions, tens of millions of votes. Maybe, like he would still lose big, but it wouldn't be like a 1 point difference or a 2 point difference like Obama versus Romney. We're talking like a 12-point difference. It would just be a landslide. I mean, a landslide is kind of understating it. It's not doing justice to the extent to which he would get creamed. I mean, it would be fun to watch. That's all that I can say. So I think I'm gonna wrap this up. Thank you for watching, my friends, and hopefully some of you will tune in tomorrow night because it is going to be very interesting. And you got your choices. You can watch like Young Turks. You can watch Kremlin Cow. You can watch Neckbeard Jimmy Dore. You can watch CNN. CNN's probably pretty good. Probably, going to get more accurate data and stuff in real time from CNN. Obviously, I don't have people on the ground and stuff here, but you can also tune into Superpower Broadcasting. So, or at least come here for analysis later on because I'm going to be streaming for a little while tomorrow night. So, it's big day. 34% of the delegates are up for grabs. So have a good night, everybody. Peace.